If you've ever enjoyed a period drama and wondered how you could capture the same aesthetic to decorate a room in your house or perhaps your study space, this video will give you some ideas as to how you can achieve this. Perhaps you've been inspired by the sets of Bridgerton or you're a Harry Potter fan. By pulling together certain decorative items, it's relatively easy to achieve a particular aesthetic. If you thrift items from charity shops, you can collect quite a number of items relatively cheaply and add to these over time to make your decorating project more affordable. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name's Emily, a university lecturer in the arts and humanities, and I run a YouTube study channel. Over the last couple of years, I've shot quite a lot of study with me videos with different desk backdrops. More recently, I've been leaning into dark academia. This is an aesthetic which has emerged from the internet, inspired by collegiate Gothic architecture, the classics and higher education. Whilst the focus of the dark academia aesthetic is very much on education, I think this draws on other decorating and architectural styles. For example, the 19th century or 1950s. So some of my decorating choices are influenced by this. For example, in thinking about the 19th century, Oriental items brought back to Britain from the Empire might influence the kind of objects which would appear on a desk of that period. And this is how I'm using inspiration from different time periods in my interpretation of the dark academia aesthetic and what I had in mind when I visited local charity shops. I'd intended to pick up just one or two items to add to a collection of items inspired by antiquity, which I've begun to build over the past couple of months. But luck was on my side and I walked away with a huge haul. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to share my finds. I'm going to show you everything I bought, explain what attracted me to the item, and show you how I'll style this in a dark academia desk backdrop. I'll also let you know how much I paid for each item. If you stick around to the very end of the video, I'll reveal what I believe is one of the oldest items I thrifted. Take a guess in the comments just now what year you think this item was made. Because I've bought so many items, I've divided this video into chapters and reveal related items together. So without further ado, let's jump in to see my dark academia thrift haul. I was absolutely thrilled to spot these small gold scales, as these are the perfect size for a desk and signify justice and reason. We could think of them as representing an academic argument, examining both sides with evidence and without bias before reaching a conclusion. The scales are the original flat pack, as they dissembled neatly to fit in their box. Originally, the case would have also held weights to place in the scales to measure items, but it was disclosed that these items were missing. However, in an amazing stroke of luck, on another shelf of bric-a-brac, I spotted a box of weights. Again, some of the weights are missing, and unfortunately these are the lightest gold weights which would have been appropriate for use on the scales. However, my thought is to just scatter the weights underneath the scales to achieve a look for the camera. There are some lighter silver weights in the box which, when combined, tip the scales. The box containing weights names the manufacturer W & George Limited, operating in Birmingham, and information from the Science Museum identifies this company operating from 1910 to 1954, so at their youngest, these were produced in the 1950s. I found this curious teapot, rather battered, but the damage just adds to the story of this item. It's a rather attractive shape, engraved, and has a marking underneath which appears to state HL & Co. EPBM 1004. I believe this is a silver plated item, and I looked up the markings online. I think EPBM indicates that it was made in Birmingham, though I couldn't identify the manufacturer or date it was produced. I'll probably use this item as a teapot sitting on my desk, though I definitely won't drink from it because it's rather dirty inside. I loved the shape of this teapot. It reminded me of the lamp from Aladdin. If I rub the side of this, do you think a genie will appear? Along with the teapot, I bought 2 different spoons. The first, a set of 4 spoons, had a decorative palm tree engraved on the top of the handle, with the letters TKRA stamped on the back of the spoon. From what I could see on the internet, these are more likely from the 1970s than from the Victorian era, but I like the representation of the palm tree as otherworldly, or perhaps being brought back to Britain from a foreign land. The other spoon is a single spoon, and its unusual shape attracted me. It looks quite old, and I think this would pair nicely with medicine bottles in a desk backdrop. This is an instrument, a gong, and I was rather pleased to find this because I've been looking for a gong which I can strike to mark the end of the Pomodoro timer in my Study With Me sessions. It's lost its beater unfortunately, and it isn't hung correctly on its stand. I think the 2 smaller notches hold the gong itself, with the larger notch holding the hammer, which is missing. The gong is highly decorated, and I suspect it's made of brass. I think it's rather dirty, but when the light catches the orange decoration, it shimmers brightly. Underneath the frame there's a marking which says "So, India 104/2F", so it appears to be an Indian gong. I found these ornate machine head musical instrument pegs, I presume for a guitar. The pegs allow you to adjust the string to tune the instrument. I particularly like the decorated gold metalwork and the symbol at the top, which reminded me of an ancient classical reference for music. I have some pegs and other parts for stringed instruments, cello and violin, so I thought I could combine these in a backdrop. This barometer is not in very good condition, but it is in working order. A barometer measures the air pressure and is able to show changes in the weather. If you tap on the glass, the dial moves to indicate the current air pressure, and you can see whether it's moving towards fair weather or rain. The second dial is used as a marker, so you can identify changes. I marked where the black dial sat on the day I bought this. It was very stormy that day. As you can see, the weather has changed for the better since then. It's not in great condition. The case of the barometer is chipped, one of the dials is rusty, and someone has obviously left it on the wall whilst they've been painting, but you won't see this on camera at a distance. The label on the back has the name of a jeweller and watchmaker still in business today in Newcastle upon Tyne and celebrating their centenary this year. I've no idea when this was made, but I'd guess the 1950s or 1960s. I found this very old Greek-shaped metal pot with engravings. I liked this because of the neoclassical reference. The decorations are faded, but that adds to its antique look. I think this is a decorative pot because it has a hole in the bottom of it. These pots caught my eye, the larger one particularly because of its oriental decoration. There's a label on the bottom which states that it was handmade in India, so this is likely a modern item, but I bought it for my backdrop because I like the implied reference to the British Empire and worldly travel of the Victorian gentleman. The pots are rather crudely produced inside, but it's the outside decoration I'm interested in using in my backdrops, particularly of the larger pot. These 2 animal wooden ornaments are a little battered but rather curious. I like the metalwork on the duck, which acts as a decorative feature to mark out the wings, collar, eyes and beak. I thought this was the kind of item that someone might spot in a backdrop and be amused by, which is why I picked up this duck. I intended to use this elephant again as an inferred reference to the Empire of Victorian Britain. He has 2 holes by his nose where his tusks are missing, as he has been passed down from owner to owner. There was another elephant of a lighter colour in the shop which had just 1 tusk remaining in this place. This is the first time I've bought fabrics from a charity shop or made significant use of fabrics to enhance a backdrop. This single curtain jumped out at me because of the pattern. It reminded me of a Regency or Georgian design, and I particularly liked the rich colours. This curtain appears to be reasonably new. I can see from the label that it was probably bought 20 or 30 years ago before the shop changed name, but the curtain tape shows no signs of wear and the fabric is not faded. It's a short curtain, so I'll probably attach it to an existing curtain in my desk backdrop with bulldog clips for appearance on camera. So this is very much a YouTube backdrop solution, but I've no doubt that second-hand fabrics can be purchased for a permanent use in a desk setting. Decanters would have commonly been seen in a gentleman's study, games rooms, or on a drinks tray in a drawing room, and we used to store spirits such as whiskey. I ended up buying two from different shops as these were inexpensive and I liked the different designs. With the decanters, I bought a small set of 4 glasses. The diamond-shaped cut glass reflected similar patterns in the decanters. These look like sherry glasses rather than for drinking spirits, but their size and matching diamond cut glass assured me that I could combine these into a backdrop well. I also picked up 2 small vases, again with similar diamond-shaped cut glass. One has some damage to it, a small chip, but this won't matter when I use it in a backdrop because I can turn the damaged part away from the camera. This kind of small vase works very well in a backdrop to store a small display of flowers. All of the glassware shown so far is quite heavy. I think this is because they are made from antique crystal glass, which has lead in it, so I definitely won't be drinking from these for that reason, but they're great for a display. This vase is much lighter in weight. I bought it because I liked the shape and design etched onto the glass, which brought to mind a Regency or Georgian style. This is the first of 4 glass jars or bottles. I suspect this is a salt shaker. The decorated metal top caught my eye after I'd bought a couple of other items. The patterns reminded me of Oriental metal designs. This item has a small chip on the top, but again, this doesn't bother me as I can turn it away from the camera. For the price, this was an interesting item, and I'll probably fill it with some wax beads, the kind that would have been melted to create a seal for letters. The final pieces of glassware are 3 medicine bottles. You can see the measures for dispensing the medicine on the side of the largest bottle. You can choose from 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoon measures. It has the name of what appears to be a chemist on the bottle, R.P. Rees. And the woman who sold me this item told me that this is how medicine was dispensed before the NHS, so that's prior to World War II. A second bottle contains lung tonic from Hill. And the third bottle is very mysterious and has writing in German. This appears to translate as the Imperial Privileged Old Crown Essence. This smallest bottle was quite expensive, but was by far my favourite of the 3. A quick search online and I found several listings of the same bottle, which included the same German text but with additional information identifying this as a herbal medical tincture and miracle cure bottle. The other items I saw listed online sold for 3 or 4 times the amount I paid, so I think I got a bargain plus a miracle cure for all ailments, it seems, just what the doctor ordered. I can't confirm the age of this bottle, but I suspect that it's a contender for one of the oldest items I bought. When I'm in a charity shop looking at the selection of framed pictures, I'm not normally looking for artworks, but rather for decorated frames. Highly decorated gold frames are not something I have on the walls of my house, so I can't draw on existing items to achieve the dark academia aesthetic in my backdrops. This is an example of a frame I picked up several months ago in a charity shop, which I paid just a few pounds for. The artwork wasn't included. I took this from a book of prints I already owned and chose this because it epitomises dark academia with the classical structure and gloomy atmosphere. This shows how you can make use of a frame to create a dark academia look by switching out the picture inside. In this haul, I purchased 4 framed or mounted artworks. Surprisingly, 3 purchases were for the images themselves rather than the frames. I purchased this art for its size rather than the image itself or a decorative frame which is plain and wooden. This miniature contains the painting of a bridge. It identifies Wetherby, a place in England, presumably where the bridge can be found, and it can be easily slotted into the foreground of a desk backdrop. This larger painting also had a plain wooden frame, but in this instance I like the depiction of a large red brick building. Commonly, UK higher education is often situated in such collegiate buildings. This building is identified as Campbell College and the painter is identified as Northern Irish. I looked this up and Campbell College is currently a private boarding school for teenage boys in Belfast, established in the 1890s. If they have occupied the same building since established, this would explain the collegiate architectural style, and it was the architectural style of the building which attracted me to the picture. There were a collection of several paintings with the same frame in the charity shop, so this was perhaps part of a larger collection. I feel like this style of print has a 1940s-50s feel, and I think the dark academia aesthetic can also encompass this period. I'm thinking of the film The Imitation Game, where Benedict Cumberbatch depicts Alan Turing's work in Bletchley Park in the Second World War, perhaps a good example of how maths and the sciences can also be encompassed into a dark academia aesthetic. Both of these artworks were painted in the late 1980s or 90s, and both identify named artists by signature on the image and on the back of the frames. Both were in original sealed picture frames, and these have been framed professionally, so no doubt were sold for a lot more when they were first produced. I like this picture because it looks like a mosaic, but it's actually a print mounted on a piece of board. Although I wasn't seeking out religious iconography for my desk backdrops, the colouring suits the dark academia aesthetic, so it will be an item that will blend well with other items, and the size means that it can be placed easily on a pile of books. What's nice about this print is that there is some information on the back which tells us about the origin of the print, Burford Priory in Oxfordshire, and we can not only learn about the figure depicted, but also that this is reproducing a 12th century mosaic. When thrifting, it's quite interesting to get these insights into the origin or inspiration for an item. This is a good example of a good quality frame which I can use to display one of my own prints. I think this is how someone has used this frame previously. This is not the original print that was sold with this frame, because we can see from the back of the frame that the varnish indicates removal of the original picture framing tape and the removal of the label which held the name of the artwork and artist, as we saw in some of the other purchases. I wonder what image this frame originally held. I already have a picture which needed a new frame, and it's just the right size, but when I'm using this in a backdrop, I'll probably switch the image for something more traditional as needed. I ended up with a huge haul of decorative items. However, my primary reason for visiting my local charity shops was to find some small old books, the kind that have a sort of waxed fabric binding. I was looking for small books because I'd been short of these when recently setting up a YouTube backdrop for a Study With Me video. Ideally, I was looking for interesting decorations on the cover or on the spine. In one instance, this was in the form of a dust cover, though I normally remove these and put them in storage for safekeeping. These books are all readable, popular works including Charles Dickens' Christmas Stories and Shakespeare's complete works. However, even though these include texts which I use in my academic work, I won't use these editions. I'll mostly make use of these books as decorations. That's because in my academic job, I'm normally working from very specific critical editions of the text. However, I will make use of some of these texts. At the end of my cinematic storytelling Study With Me videos, I started to include a quotation from a poem, and I've already spotted a potential quote to accompany an autumnal video. What's fascinating about these old books are the annotations by readers of the past. Here, a reader makes some technical observations about a Robert Browning poem as a work that is technically perfect and the function of a certain metaphor. Twilight blurs out distinctions. There's also some analysis or thoughts in head. How he cheated Francis, how he could have been great, and trying to justify himself. Some of the text is in pencil, some in green ink, which may indicate different or the same reader. The edition appears to have been published in 1906, but looking at the writing, the green ink appears to belong to two readers, one writing in 1944. One can only wonder whose B's philosophy is, and notice how two readers appear to have observed this line as notable. It's time to reveal what I believe is the oldest item from my thrift haul. This highly decorated book of Longfellow's poetical works, which has gold-tipped pages. This book contains illustrated poems with the illustrations protected by greaseproof paper and appears to have been a gift with an inscription reading "To Elizabeth Stroke from her brother William, Liverpool, August 2nd, 1868. What fascinates me about old items such as this is to think of the previous owners, who they were and the life they led. And this completes my thrift haul. The cost of all of these items adds up to a grand total of £174.73. And whilst this feels quite an extravagant amount of money to spend on a desk decoration, I'm reminding myself that I will use these items regularly in YouTube backdrops, that some of the items would have cost much more if I'd bought reproductions, say on Amazon, that some of the items could fetch more when sold individually as antiques, and that ultimately the money was donated to various charities for charitable work. So I think that's a win-win. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more thrift hauls or ideas for creating decorative backdrops for your studies or for your home, then consider giving this video a thumbs up, leaving a comment and subscribing for more study content. Thanks for watching.